Hello, I'm Matt Wilkinson and welcome to our show Royal Exclusive. With me today is historian and biographer Hugo Vickers. Welcome, Hugo.
Thank you for having me, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to have you on. And it's very important to have you on because we have had a week or a day of huge historical significance. King Charles is meeting his third Prime Minister after the general election, Sir Keir Starmer. I say his third Prime Minister, I think, in just under 2 years. How important is it, do we think, for the King to have a good relationship with the Prime Minister, and how do you see it playing out with Sir Keir?
Well, it's extremely important. The King gives a kind of element of stability, of being above politics and of continuity. So that, for example, years ago when the Tory party got rid of Mrs. Thatcher, it was very useful to know that the Queen was there ready to deal with whoever the Conservative Party produced. And I think that in those sort of moments of transition, this is one of the things which is very important. King, of course, had to come down from Scotland from his visit to Edinburgh, and he will have received Rishi Sunak this morning, and he will chat to him. I know that, I'm not quite sure how I know this, but I do that the Queen was, the late Queen was, very full of advice for Boris Johnson as to how he should comport himself as an ex-Prime Minister, because she'd seen a great number of them come and go in her time.
This is when she said goodbye to
up in Scotland.
Balmoral.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the King is a very sympathetic man. I mean, he will realise this is a crushing moment for Rishi Sunak, so they'll have a nice chat. But he comes in through one door and he kind of goes out through another, and I think he even leaves in a different car because power changes so quickly. And the next minute, in comes Keir Starmer. And, of course, the King will give him his maximum support in any way he possibly can, because he knows that he, the King, is there by accident of birth. But Keir Starmer has been chosen by the electorate, and he is the elected man, so he needs to be supported in any way possible. And so those conversations that the King and the Prime Minister have on, I think it's usually Tuesday evenings, we don't know what they talk about, and nor should we. They should be allowed to talk about anything and everything. And it's a great moment for the Prime Minister to sort of let his hair down and talk to the King, knowing that it's not going to go anywhere else.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yes.
It's his third Prime Minister. We need it to work, and I think that Starmer would be silly to not listen to King Charles's advice or listen to the responses that he provides if he has any issue. A little bit of fun this week. So I did a story last summer where Prince William had got himself an electric scooter. Do you know these electric scooters? They're littered around the streets of London at the moment. Or if you go to Europe, every European capital has these tiny ride-on scooters. So Prince William lives at Adelaide Cottage, and he whizzes up to Windsor Castle, one of these electric scooters, and a tourist has captured him on... I mean, what do you think of this? Sometimes people look a little bit embarrassed on these machines. They're not the most graceful machines in the world, but he's a young dad. He's a dad of 3, and it's an environmentally friendly way to travel around the castle.
Well, I've seen the clip, and it's great fun. And I thought to myself, well, what better way? Adelaide Cottage is very, very close to the castle, and he will, you see him going along, and then you see him going out through the George IV gate, and he can be fairly confident that nobody's going to be coming in the other direction. What a brilliant way of getting around. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could do the same.
I have to say that they are quite dangerous. I fell off one in Germany a couple of weeks ago,
Yes.
They can be a little bit dodgy, but yeah. I think it's great because he is an environmentally friendly prince.
Yes.
This is the right way to get around.
Yes, very, very quick and practical, and why not?
Excellent. Right, now, we need to touch on William's brother, Prince Harry. Just briefly. I sometimes get, I don't know how you feel about this, but I sometimes get a little bit annoyed with constant efforts to have a go at Harry. Okay, and I try to avoid this sometimes. It's just kind of, it's 4 years ago since he's left. Lots of things have happened, but I think there are often just attempts, really to just have a go at him. But I'm interested in this award that he is been nominated for, or he's been nominated, but he's actually going to get. Do you know the award? This Pat Tillman Award in the USA, and the award's wonderful. It's a guy, an NFL player, who was inspired by 9/11 or affected so much by 9/11 that he went to fight, and he was sadly killed in combat. So there was an annual award. He's getting this award for his service, Harry, but also for his work with Invictus Games. Right. But his mother is incredibly upset about this, and she said, I've got some quotes here. She says that Harry is a controversial and divisive individual, and there are recipients that are more fitting. How do we feel about this? Is it uncomfortable that he's winning this award?
I think it is a bit uncomfortable. I mean, he doesn't need an award. I mean, I think what he did with the Invictus Games was brilliant, and I'm glad that he's still doing things for them. That's very good. But the trouble is, it gets tied up with all this sort of need for reinvention, publicity, and things like that, which they're always doing. I mean, I feel sorry for Prince Harry in another way, because I don't think he looks very happy. I think he's rather out of his depth, to be quite honest. I also think that the King has been brilliant at not responding to any of the things like these documentaries and the book Spare. He's left the door wide open for him to come back whenever he needs to do that, which I suppose is likely to happen at some point.
You mentioned he looks sad, or he looks upset. I think you're right. I haven't seen him smile for a long time.
Well, you know, the funny thing is I live in chaos at home, and I've been very busy doing other things, and so I had a lot of magazines and newspapers lying around, and I picked one up, and there he was, grinning from ear to ear, and I thought, what's all this about? 2015.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, with this award as well, I mean, to say I try not to get too upset about it, but his mother said that he shouldn't have it, and there is this question as to whether members of the royal family should be picking up awards like this. The royal family give out awards.
They should give them out. Yeah, they should. They should. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes if there's an award which highlights a particular, you know, the people giving the award, and it's helpful for the member of the royal family to receive it, I can understand that would be useful. What I'm worried about is that this is more to do with publicity for Prince Harry. It seems to me that they have a problem, those two, because they've told their story. I don't know how they can go on and on telling their story, and eventually people are likely to get bored with it, I would imagine. And since the difference between what they're doing and what the British royal family are doing is the British royal family are working for the nation, for us, for the Commonwealth, and they seem to be working for themselves, and that's always unattractive, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and this has backfired.
Yes.
As I say, the opposition to this has backfired. I mean, just turning up to win an award, and the mother of the award that it's named after has said that he doesn't want Harry. It's a terrible look, and I worry that he has been pushed into this award somehow, and he's kind of being used somehow by other people to kind of get publicity for the award. I mean, you know, I don't want anything bad to happen to Prince Harry. We kind of wish him all the best, but I do worry the direction that they're going if they're just turning up, picking awards and causing controversy. We did have a vote or we had a poll from viewers of the show, and 86% said that he should not win this award. So that's pretty inclusive.
Sensible.
Yeah. But you mentioned about the contrast with members of the royal family. I was wondering to get your thoughts on this. Prince William isn't having an investiture to be Prince of Wales. And the Princess of Wales, I think she recently got named Royal Companion of the Order of Companions of Honour. That's connected to the Order of Garter, I believe.
No, Companions of Honour is, there's two particular awards. There's the Companions of Honour and the Order of Merit. The Order of Merit being the senior one. It's quite unusual that the King suddenly gave her the Companion of Honour. To be honest, what he would almost certainly do with an award like that is just give it to her privately.
Well, there's no investitures for William or Catherine.
No, there could be, but it would only be just normally when members of the royal family get those things, they have a private meeting with the monarch, and it's just handed over. I mean, rather like Queen Camilla getting the royal family order of the king the other day, we didn't see her getting it. I mean, suddenly there she was wearing it. The Order of the Garter obviously is a hugely more important thing, but it's quite nice that interesting that he should have decided to give her that particular decoration, because the Companions of Honour is sort of sub-Order of Merit, if you like, and it is given to a lot of artists and authors and people in the creative industry. Sometimes, I'm afraid, also handed out to cabinet ministers who get dumped for one reason or another, like in Macmillan's The Night of the Long Knives, and they dish out a few Companion of Honour things. So it's kind of interesting order.
I was in Scotland. You mentioned about the Order of the Thistle.
The Thistle.
The Thistle. Yeah, so I was there
in Scotland.
It's a very strange ceremony. So
I've been. Yes, I went when Princess Anne was made a Lady of the Thistle. I mean, and they process in, and it's all rather wonderful. They also process on St Andrew's Day without the King, and there aren't that many of them. There are sort of 16 actual thistles and a few royal ones. But it's as important in Scotland as the Order of the Garter in England.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was crowds of people
Yes.
outside to see them, and the St Giles's Cathedral was packed, and they had
all the archers.
Yeah, the archers were wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
wonderful.
no, it's a wonderful ceremony altogether. And of course, they had the garden party the day before, which of course is in a wonderful setting. I've been to one of those, and with I mean, it's so beautiful. Completely different. The whole Scottish week is very interesting.
A striking and highly emotional claim is making headlines that Meghan Markle's actions toward the royal family, particularly Queen Elizabeth II, have sparked a crisis more profound than even the death of Princess Diana. Some have gone as far as calling Meghan's behavior unforgivable, suggesting it caused deep hurt to the late Queen and left long-lasting damage within the monarchy. So, where is this narrative coming from? Is it grounded in fact, media spin, or public sentiment? And is it fair, or even accurate, to compare the two? Let's take a closer, objective look. The comparison between Meghan Markle's actions and the death of Princess Diana originates from a segment of royal commentators and tabloid headlines that accuse Meghan of causing an unforgivable rift within the royal family. These critics argue that her interviews, particularly the 2021 Oprah special, humiliated the Queen and the monarchy, that the timing of her public disclosures, especially during Prince Philip's hospitalization and in the Queen's final years, was inappropriate or insensitive, that her departure from royal duties with Prince Harry has destabilized the firm more than any single event in modern royal history.
Moral
yes.
is open to lucky ticket holders. I think the first people have gone in this week. Many journalists have gone in and had a look around. Do you have a ticket to go in?
No, but parts of Balmoral, the grounds and some of the rooms have been open for some years, but you don't really see very much. I see the ballroom, and then you go to the sort of coach house and various things like that. But this time they're actually letting you really much more behind the scenes, and I believe even into the room where the Queen was so memorably photographed, about to receive those two prime ministers.
Yeah, so this is the drawing room. The drawing room. In front of apparently it's the only working fire in Balmoral. I didn't know that until this week. The fire, right. The famous picture taken by the wonderful Jane Barlow, PA, of her in front of the fire, was that's the only working fire. But you can walk around. Apparently, I didn't get the chance to go yet, unfortunately. There was a restricted number of things I'd love to go one day. But you have to cover your shoes. So when you go onto the carpet, no selfies either. So you have to hand your phone in before you go in.
Good idea.
But opening up, these are private rooms that the royal family use. You've got the dining room where they entertain. You've got, let's say, the drawing room. You've got all these different, the King Charles's study. It's the first time that people are allowed in. Are you comfortable with tourists traipsing around Balmoral?
Yes, I am. Balmoral is not used as much as it was before, and so to make it available and to let people see these rooms, I think that is rather special. That they shouldn't show everything. They shouldn't show bedrooms, I don't think, and otherwise that sort of takes away the soul of the house somehow, I think.
That's not the only place you've been to, because I understand Buckingham Palace are opening up the East Wing in coming weeks for tourists. Again, like similar to Balmoral, we're opening up these palaces to members of the public to have a little look around. And this is the first time that the East Wing has been open to tourists. I'm going next week for a tour.
Fantastic.
You can go right up to the balcony, but not onto the balcony.
Okay.
I think that would be a bit tasteless, wouldn't it, going onto the balcony?
Yeah, you can't have lots of journalists waving to the crowds. I don't think that would be right.
We'd get booed anyway.
Yeah.
But you've been in the East Wing, surely. You've been in there to see people.
I've been
What's
in the
like?
Chinese dining room twice, because once I was involved with a committee which was when, if you remember, years ago, some children came with daffodils from the Queen's 60th birthday, came up the Mall, and she received the daffodils, and we were entertained in the Chinese dining room. And I also actually held a committee meeting there with the Duke of Gloucester, because he was my patron at the Jubilee Walkway. We got lots of people to come to that. But then when I was writing a biography of Prince Philip's mother, his sister was living in the rooms you'll probably see, which are between the Chinese dining room, which is on the Constitution Hill side, full of things from the Brighton Pavilion, rather amazing. Look out for that room. And then there's bathroom, bedroom, sitting room, bedroom, bathroom, which I think leads pretty much up to the balcony room. And that's where guests would stay. So I used to go and see Prince Philip's sister there and chat to her and her husband. And also that's where the Duchess of Windsor stayed when she came over for the Duke's funeral. So those are very interesting rooms. And where Prince Philip's mother actually lived for the last years of her life, unlike in that tiresome Netflix series, The Crown, where they put her into some attic room, locked her up like Mrs. Rochester in Jane Eyre. Nonsense. She had very grand rooms overlooking the front.
Well, I can't wait, and I'm
Yes.
enjoying what you're saying. So, when you were in there, did you ever meet any members? Because I don't think I'll meet any members of the royal family when I'm on my tour. But
Yes,
did you go in there to see
the
them?
Queen came into the Chinese dining room the day of on her 60th birthday in 1986. I did meet her on that occasion. Yes.
Yeah. And what happened?
Are
you allowed to tell us?
She was no. I mean, I met the Queen 40 times between
40?
Between 1968 and 2022. Last time I saw her I was allowed to go and visit her in her oak room at Windsor Castle in June of the year she died, and that was very special. I was there for 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And she was firing on all cylinders, chatting about, we talked a lot about the fire restoration and things to do with Windsor and St George's Chapel, and yeah, I mean, she was amazing. I mean, the Queen always liked facts. She liked information, so she liked to learn things each time. So with the Jubilee Walkway, she came at 8 times to unveil panels, and so I would always make sure that, for example, the one in Parliament Square, we had a special Braille feature on it, and so we managed to get what am I allowed to say, partially sighted blind lady to come and explain to the Queen and Prince Philip what she could see through her fingers. That's fascinating, you know, on the panel. That's the sort of thing they liked, and they always liked to come away with having learnt something special. They had wonderful, you know, very inquiring and lots of curiosity. And Prince Philip would always, he would, you know, why did you do it like that? And he would go on until he jolly well got the answer.
I'm just thinking 40 times. Were they private occasions, or were they?
Some of them were, yeah. Well, the first time was, I was, when I was at school, I used to show tourists around St George's Chapel at Windsor on Sunday afternoons. It was open in those days. And one afternoon, I was planted on a door where they were actually building the little tomb house for where the King and Queen Mother and the Queen and Prince Philip are buried, which, by the way, now attracts streams of tourists, I mean streams of pilgrims, let's call them, because the crowds that waited for the lying in state, they are still coming to Windsor in droves, and people come from all over the world to come past that little tomb house. So there was a construction around a wooden door, and so the Queen just came round the corner, and there she was. That was the first meeting. Then the Queen Mother got two of them on the same day.
Amazing. They must have greeted you like old friends after the 40.
Well, you have to be careful about that, because you know, they know perfectly well who you are, but you never push it. You just let them do the running. They know. They will. I mean, the Queen was brilliant. She could walk past people without seemingly without seeing them, without offending them in any way at all. Or she might decide to talk to them, swing round and have a chat. And I always thought that was interesting about her was that when you were with her, it was as if you were with her the whole time. But no, you weren't. And then when you weren't there, you didn't exist.
Amazing. We could do a whole show on your 40 visits, your 40 meetings with the Queen. But maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
If you're allowed to talk about
Yes,
it.
well, I have been lucky to talk to other members of the royal family too, because obviously when I did the book about Prince Philip's mother, I was allowed to go and see quite a number of them. I spent an hour and a quarter with Princess Anne, and she was totally brilliant, took me on about the Franco-Prussian War and all sorts of things I wasn't expecting. And I went to see Prince Charles at Sandringham, and I had an hour with Prince Philip and also the Queen Mother and one or two others. And that was very, very fascinating. And then you can really ask them about, you know, what she was like, and they know that you're doing an authorised book. And so there came a point, of course, when the book was finished, and although it wasn't in the contract, I handed in my typescript for Prince Philip to read it, and his private secretary came to see me later and he said, "Now, Prince Philip expresses himself in a very robust manner." I said, "I know exactly what he does, because I've seen one of these before. And he has a habit of writing rot, rubbish, nonsense in the margin. Doesn't mean it's that, but actually it means he hopes it is. But if you fight your corner and say, well, I've got 22 pages of Foreign Office papers on this, okay, you win that point, on to the next." So when I did a book with the Duke of Kent, again, obviously, I showed it to him because we did a book of conversations. And what he used to do was he would put sort of ... question mark. I thought, that's his version of rot, rubbish, nonsense, and needs to be taken very seriously. He's just much gentler in his approach. It's all great fun, though.
That's fantastic. That's marvellous access. You're very lucky.
Yes.
I need to ask you about Prince Andrew, if you don't mind. I don't know if you've had any run-ins with Prince Andrew over the years or met Andrew, but Royal Lodge is a constant story at the moment. What's going to happen to Royal Lodge? So we understand that the King does want Andrew out of Royal Lodge, but the idea would be not to move any members of the royal family into it, because obviously it was the late Queen Mother's house as well.
Yes,
people have lived there for
very
years.
much so, yes.
But to return it to Crown Estates and maybe rent it out to some wealthy people or use it for another purpose. What do you think of that solution?
That's
And what do you
interesting.
what do you think that the King should do with Prince Andrew and Royal Lodge?
Well, first of all, some of the houses at Kensington Palace have been rented out to people or given to sort of Chief of the General Staff and people like that. So there is a precedent for this sort of thing. Prince Andrew was getting into trouble if you say anything in his favour, poor chap. But, I mean, he hasn't been convicted of anything. But, I mean, he gave that ridiculous interview. He's very unpopular and he does not do royal duties, and nor will he.
But critics aren't the only voice in this discussion. While Queen Elizabeth II was always discreet, her few public statements about Harry and Meghan were diplomatic and measured. After the Oprah interview, the Queen released a statement saying, "The issues raised, particularly that of race, are concerning. While some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously." Behind closed doors, some insiders claim the Queen was hurt, disappointed, or confused by the Sussexes' choices. But others argue she remained committed to keeping family matters private and avoided public retaliation. There is no verified evidence that the Queen ever used the word unforgivable, or that she considered Meghan's actions as damaging as this claim suggests. Let's be clear. The death of Princess Diana in 1997 was a global event, triggering national mourning, anger at the monarchy, and a seismic shift in public opinion. The fallout led to permanent changes in how the royal family engages with the public and media. It was a turning point in British cultural and royal history. By contrast, the Meghan and Harry crisis, while serious, is largely a media and institutional crisis, not a national tragedy.
So it seems to me that at some point he does need to move somewhere more practical. And I'm sorry that that the Queen died before she sort of sorted him out, which she could have done, because she could have bought him a house somewhere. I don't necessarily wish to say where it might be, where he would be content and safe and sort of out of the way, and this sort of issue wouldn't be coming up. I mean, Royal Lodge is huge and must be very expensive to run. And if he isn't getting the grants and things that he did before, it means that the King will be supporting him, and therefore probably in the fullness of time he needs to live somewhere smaller. But all he does now is ride in the park and play a bit of golf and things. And well, I mean, he's it was born in 1960, so he's 64. So I suppose he's almost at a sort of retirement age, if you like, for most people, not usually for members of the royal family. But he's not going to come back. He's not going to do any more royal duties. And so I guess at some stage he will leave Royal Lodge, but it would be better if he could do it voluntarily, I would suggest. As for renting it out or using it another way, that's quite an interesting idea, because it is actually right in the middle of the home park, and it's right next to the little chapel where the Queen certainly used to go every Sunday when she was at Windsor. I'm not sure how practical it would be, but then Fort Belvedere, of course, was given to Galen Weston. He used it and he did it up very stylishly. So maybe it's a form of bringing revenue to the Crown Estates, and the King's very keen on all that sort of thing, making things pay for themselves. So, yeah, it could be put to some use like that.
Well, we'll talk about that for weeks and months and years coming up. William and Catherine will not move in, by the way. That's been 100% ruled out. They don't want to live in Royal Lodge. They're quite happy at Adelaide Cottage.
Well, I've been to Adelaide Cottage under other, when somebody else was living there. It's wonderful. It's lovely. And perfect place for a young family. And it's also got a lot of land for which, as you see, Prince William can scoot all over on his little gadget.
Running out of time, unfortunately. Oh. So what? To finish off, I'm having to give you the dreaded quickfire questions at the end. Okay. Do you mind? Are you prepared for these?
I am.
Right.
Let's see how
we can get on.
Yes.
Right. So there was video footage of the Duchess of Edinburgh at Sandringham.
Yes.
Taking part in a drinking game while she was carriage racing.
Right.
Who, in all the roles that you've met, in all the experience that you've had and been everyone, who would win a drinking game?
Well, funny enough, considering how much wonderful wines and things that they're always offered, they drink very little, the royal family. So I would suggest that you should put Prince William up on this because he is so tall that it will take a long time to pass through the system, and therefore he'll be able to cope better with whatever, assuming it's alcoholic that he's given. I don't know what he drinks, but I know that the Queen hardly ever drank any wine. Prince Philip didn't either, and Princess Anne drinks absolutely no alcohol of any kind. Won't even have it in the pudding. She wouldn't even have it in the trifle.
That's a good theory, but Mike Tyndall says his nickname is 1 Pint Willie.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So when I was in Scotland this week, the King and Queen were given a cake by a Great British Bake Off winner. I don't know if you've seen it. Which royal would win if they took part? If they were contestants on Great British Bake Off?
Well, I imagine, going to answer this rather boringly, it'd probably be one of the younger ones who are probably more sort of brought up to look after themselves than some of the older ones who've been catered for. So I guess maybe one of the younger royals, perhaps Zara Tindall, who knows, might be a good person for that. I'm sure they're all very practical. I'm sure they're very good. They're all very good at looking after themselves.
That's a good answer. I remember seeing some footage of George, William and Catherine kind of baking, weren't they,
with the Queen and with Prince Charles. Yeah, they did the generations, didn't they, in Windsor Castle. So, well, maybe Prince George would be up to it. He's a great cricketer, Prince George, by the way.
Is that right?
Yeah, look out for him in cricket.
Okay, all right. I'll note that one down. So what do you think has been the biggest crisis in the royal family over the past 50 years?
Well, of course, 50 years doesn't take in the abdication. So obviously, I suppose the death of Diana, 1997, was a big crisis point. But at the risk of being controversial, will the arrival of Meghan Markle prove to be a bigger one in the long run? Who knows?
Well, I got in trouble before on this show with some viewers for suggesting that I thought that Harry's departure was the biggest crisis in the past 50 years. But I'm with you. I think that period of time between the Duchess of Sussex arriving, everything changing, and then them leaving, I think is a huge crisis that the royal family are still trying to cope with.
I think that it's quite interesting, all that, because I was, as no doubt you were, in Windsor the day they got married, and the popularity and the goodwill towards them was enormous. And I don't think it was the press. I think she succeeded in eroding that very, very quickly. And what I find unforgivable is the stress that she put on the late Queen in the last couple of years of her life.
Yeah, I think you're right. Talking to Harry and Meghan, where do you think they will be in 10 years' time? You've mimed...
I think he'll come home. I think he'll come home. And if he comes home, we must be very nice to him, because he won't particularly want to. He's quite angry, I think, and he's quite... And to me...
You think he'll come home alone?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. The King, as I mentioned before, has left the door wide open for him to do that. And, he was doing such a good job before. And as we said earlier in the programme, he looked so happy. And because usually you're happy when you're doing your duty and you're doing it for other people and you're putting things into life. If you're taking things out of life...
that maybe he wanted. What's
terribly sad is that the late Queen gave them the whole of the Commonwealth to explore. I mean, that was going to be William and Catherine would do the home things. And the Commonwealth, to which they were both committed. I mean, she'd been doing things in the Commonwealth before she married him. It seemed like a perfect fit. And that wasn't enough for them, which is very sad. I don't know. It could have all been so wonderful, and it's turned out not to be.
I've got an idea. If as you suggest, Harry comes home alone in 10 years, he can live in Royal Lodge.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Let me wrap it all up into one. And I think, to be honest, you may well have done this. I was going to ask, if you could ask any royal on the record any question, what would it be?
Well, listen, since we've gone down this awful Harry and Meghan path, what I perhaps might ask the King was, did he, when he was walking her up the aisle, did he have any idea how it was going to turn out? What were his thoughts on that day? But I'm not going to ask him that. So.
What do you think?
And he's not going to tell me anyway. So.
No, I wonder what his answer would be. I think he did the right thing by walking her up the aisle. It was,
yes, it was extremely generous of him. And I think, to my mind, again, I listened, so I've sort of stitched myself up effectively already on this topic, but I think she, in a way, sort of twisted the situation into a position where that's what he was going to do, which was, her father should have been there in the church. He was very good to her when she was young. He's a broken man, and I feel very sorry for him.
Okay, and final question, I promise. And again, you may have already stayed in places, but given Balmoral has opened its doors, if you could spend one night in any royal property, where would it be? Have you stayed in any royal property?
Well, I've stayed in Windsor Castle, but not in the royal part of it. If you see, I was in St George's House and in one or two other places, because there are lots of other people living in Windsor Castle. Yeah. I think I'd rather like to go to Sandringham. I have been to Sandringham. I went to see Prince Charles at Sandringham, but I didn't stay the night. So that'd be quite fun to stay the night at Sandringham, I think.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Hugo. I've really enjoyed having you on. I wish we could go on for longer, and I think we could get you back. And I'd like to dig back into some of the stories where some of the members of the royal family that you've met, particularly 40 occasions with the Queen, which I think people listening to that will just be, so impressed.
I was terribly, terribly lucky.
Yeah.
Miss her hugely, don't you?
I totally do, yeah. One of the videos popped up on my phone the other day of 2 years ago, where and it was a video that I was with the Queen in Scotland, and I'd almost forgotten about the engagement. The memories that come up on your phone.
Yes.
I've not seen her for a long time. So,
I mean, they were there for so long, and somehow it just bestowed a kind of a wonderful aura of calm. And things haven't been good for the royal family, have they? Since then, I mean, they've had a very difficult time with all their illnesses and other things.
Difficult start to the year, but things are looking a lot more positive.
Good.
However, for traditionalists or monarchists, Meghan's actions may feel more destabilizing because they challenge the institution from within, especially around issues like race, mental health, and royal hierarchy. So while the comparison is emotionally charged, it is also contextually different. Supporters of Meghan argue that calling her actions unforgivable is grossly unfair and rooted in racism, sexism, or a refusal to modernize the royal institution. They point out that Meghan and Harry repeatedly said they were driven to leave by toxic press coverage and lack of support. The Queen herself reportedly wished them well in their post-royal life. Meghan never personally attacked the Queen. Most of her critiques were directed at the institution, not the monarch herself. To them, Meghan isn't a villain. She's someone who stepped away from an environment she found damaging and was punished for speaking out. So, is what Meghan did truly unforgivable? Is the royal crisis she's associated with larger than the grief over Diana? Or is this another case of history repeating, where a woman on the outside challenges the crown and faces disproportionate backlash? The answers depend on where you stand, but the conversation continues to reveal deep fault lines between tradition, change, and the pressures of public royalty.